Hi everybody, this is Ellen. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a peas in the pod squishy, homemade, awesome. I think it's totally adorable how it turned out, and it's not hopefully super difficult for you to make. I just love it. Squish, squish. So for making these, you want some foam. I'm using ones that are, it's a big foam sheet. You can get it at craft stores. This one is 2 inches thick, although you can use different sizes. You just have to kind of gauge, scale up or scale down the drawing that you do on here and then the cutting. But this one is about 2 inches thick by 5 inches long. Then you'll want a marker to draw out your design first. Try and find a marker that is similar in color to what you're going to be painting it when you're all finished, because sometimes it's hard to get the little, like if I did this in black, if I didn't cut it all off, it might still show up if I painted it white, things like that. So a color that's close to what you're painting would be good. Then you want the scissors to use. Big scissors are nice for cutting off big chunks. My favorite pair of scissors are these, they're called precision tip, but they're basically like super pointy at the end, because when I go through pieces of foam, I can almost just stab it with the end of it and then cut if I need to. But these are my favorite precision tip pointy ones, and I just use those most of the time. And then you'll want fabric paint to cover it when you're all done, using a couple different shades of green, some pink, black, and white. So I will say that, like this one, if you want it really squishy, you really have to layer on the fabric paint. So be prepared that if you want it to be one that kind of like basically takes forever to come back out to its right shape, you're going to have to do like several layers of puffy paint. And puffy paint is not super cheap at all, so definitely look for, I went and bought like the bigger kits that are like, I think $20, and then I had a coupon, so I got it for like $10. So I have a bunch of colors, and then this, then I just buy little tubes of the ones that I use more often, or if I find them on sale, like the big tubes, I'll get those. So, but definitely keep that in mind. So if you get all done painting it and you're like, this isn't very squishy, it's probably just because you're going to need more layers of puffy paint on it. So we'll get started. So I have my block here, and what I'm going to do is start by drawing my 3 circles for my 3 peas, and I just kind of want them in the center. I just do it freehand because you're going to be cutting anyways. It doesn't have to be super perfect. And you can adjust it as you, if you make it too big or too small, just keep changing. So 3 circles, like that. Now, what I did was, we want to have the little kind of groove or shape to the pea pod. So I'll start with my inside line first. And I want it to be a little bit away from my circles, but come in and then go back out. Like that, and I just do that on the bottom. So like that, and then we just trace around the outside of that for kind of the outside edge of our pod. So it is kind of eyeballing things to see how much space you can use while you're making it. And if you get there and you're all done and you're like, oh, I cut off that part, or I could have used a little more, room, just readjust it, or in my case I could flip the block over and try drawing it again if I wanted to. But that's pretty good for me. So like that. So once you have the basic shape of your pea pod, then we start cutting. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut around the inside line of the pea pod. And I go down about a half an inch or so. Okay, so I have it cut all the way around, about a half inch down. And then what I do is I basically cut, if you figure out the top of the pea, and then it kind of rounds out to the side. So I just start by first separating them. So I'll cut up in between them. And these two are about a half inch down, just straight across in between the peas. That. Then it'll go around each pea. So you can kind of bend it back a little bit if you need to. It's a little helpful. I'm just going to start cutting and trimming off the sides. So like that, I've cut off all the little edges on each one, and now here's where you have to kind of take your own skill and practice with basically rounding out each one of these so that it is a rounder shape for the pea. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. They're shaped fairly well. If I have any spots that are, like, they might bother me later or something, when we paint these with the Puffy Paint, you'll be able to notice them better, and then you can adjust and kind of let your paint dry for a while, and then you can go back with your scissors and trim up anything, but I think this is pretty good. So now what we want to do is I'm going to kind of do the outside of the pod. So first, I'm just going to try and cut everything from like this, the line that I have here, straight down all the way around. And for the sides, it's just kind of cutting off a piece. All the way down. Alright, so roughly like this. You can see that there's little segments on each side. Now it's just a matter of cleaning all those up. Start with the front part up here first. Try not to make this wall too thin up in the top part. And then on the ends, you'll want to point out the end of the pea pod. I got them all fuzzy. So make sure that those kind of turn into points. So like mine, I kind of ended, I drew it a little bit big when I drew it, so when I go to clean it up, I'm going to make sure that I try and point these out a little bit on the ends. So it's just cleaning up the outside edge. We're still going straight back for now. Just more precision cutting this time. So once you have the outside edge done, you want to go in, check the inside edge as well, make sure that it is to your liking. Usually I run my finger around and I can kind of tell if it's about the same depth all the way around each of the peas. I'll clean up the inside edge and kind of round it off a little bit on each one of the outside of the pod. So now the pod for me is totally finished on the top, so now we just need to work on the back end of it. Then you see I just kind of rounded it off. And so starting on one side, I just kind of started cutting in on the end until I had an angle that I liked. Do the same thing on the other side. So of course you want to try and make them as similar as possible, and you can just keep trimming and cutting until you get it the way you want it. So I have the sides angled in a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is just start angling off the sides of the pod towards the center line of the pea pod. So let's kind of start back kind of in the middle and just start going towards that middle. And if you're using different size foam, you're going to have a different, it won't be quite as tedious to do this part, so, but just so you're rounding it out. And when you are doing the rounding out, you want to make sure that you maintain these little grooves right here as you go around, so don't cut those out or make them disappear, because that's part of the, kind of give it the pod look more. Alright, so once you get to here, and you have like a little bit left that you still need to round out, you can either round it off like I did on this one, or you can just kind of continue around and make each little pea pod kind of little separated, so it's kind of however you want to do it. I'm still going to round this one off like I did my other one, so I'm kind of at the last part here. Now this also is pretty wide, so you can cut off quite a bit on the back side if you want to. It's really up to you on how you think it looks best, so don't be afraid to experiment cutting more, cutting less. But just want to round it out. So here I think it's my final one. I like the way it looks so far. Yes, so you have to get all of the little fuzz off and get ready to paint it. Just remember, you can always keep cutting, keep trimming, keep perfecting it to how you want it. Whatever it looks like in the end is perfectly fine as long as you're happy with it. Because, I mean, even looking at my two here, they aren't the same. But a little bit crazier with some of the denting and stuff, so I mean, they're always going to be a little different. So don't think that if you've made one and it doesn't look exactly like this, that it's not right, because any way you do it is perfectly fine as long as you're happy with it. So I'll clean this up and then we'll get ready to paint. Okay, so first you want to protect your workspace with something, because Puffy Paint can stain pretty well. And we're going to start first to paint this by painting the peas on the inside, because it's the lighter color. You want to try to paint lighter to darker, because if you get some of the light paint around the inside, it's okay, because then you'll be able to cover it with the darker paint. So I'll start with the light first. This is just a neon green. And you can do this any number of ways. Just use the paint itself, the paint tip as your guide, as your brush. And like I said, the more that you put on, the more of a squishy effect it will have. And for the peas, if you pull back the outside edge of the pod while you're painting, that'll help you get down low into those little cracks. Okay, so I have all of the peas painted for the majority of the part. Now what I do is sometimes, to help kind of make it so that I don't have to necessarily do a second coat, but I'll still get the more of the puffiness. So I just kind of load up a lot of paint right on top of what I'm painting, then use like a popsicle stick or something to just press it down into the foam so that it sucks up all that paint. We're basically doing this to cut off the airflow from the inside to the outside, and that's what makes it squishy. And then we'll be back with the second part. So now the center peas are fairly dry. They're still a little damp, but ready to go on to the next part. I'm going to paint the pod, and when I do this part, I am going to put on some rubber gloves. I would recommend them if you have them. It's not necessary. Just make sure that after you're done with the puffy paint that you wash your hands pretty quickly after, because it does tend to kind of just want to stay on you, and you end up having to peel it off. So peas. And I'm going to go with a larger bottle because I don't think I have enough of the smaller Christmas green, but they're basically the same color. So, and I'm just going to start by soaking it up. You can start in the center area and really just be careful. Kind of get down in there next to the pea. And just be careful as you go, because this is a darker color. So if you get it onto the lighter color, you may have to like trim off the parts that you where you got the darker color on the lighter color. It's not a huge deal, but if you just take your time in the center portion, you should be able to do it without getting any of the green on the pea itself, so any of the darker green. So I'm going to do this now. Alright, so I've completely covered the outside pod in green. It may require a second coat, just kind of depends on how thick you want it or how squishy you want it. So we'll let this dry and then we'll see how it turns out. So here it is with the pod and the peas all covered in the fabric paint, and it is nice and squishy. I think I could add a little bit more to make it even squishier. Basically, the more you add, like I said, the more it is squishy. I think that's pretty good. So now it's time to add the face. I'm going to add just a little face similar to what this one is. Now when you do this, you can do it directly from the bottle, or you can use toothpicks and draw it on that way. You can draw your face on in pen beforehand, or a little marker that you're going to cover up, just so you kind of have it all situated when you're doing it so you don't make any boo-boos. You can also Google kawaii faces, and you'll be able to find tons of different variations for how to make your eyes different. So this is just one version that I like. So we start with, do the eyes, and just put a little on, make it into a circle, little smiley face. A little different, but they look good to me. And once you have that, I'm going to add the cheeks because those are off to the side. And then I do add a little white dot to their eyes to kind of give them the dreamy appearance. You don't have to do that. If you do plan to do it, I would definitely recommend waiting until your black or whatever color you use for the eyes dries, because if you smear them together it'd be a little bit harder to fix it. Although if you do mess up anything in the face, it kind of hurts, but if you can take your scissors back out and you can basically just shave off the top of your P and you can start over with the face. So it's not the end of the world if you mess it all up. You can just carefully kind of trim off the top where you have put the face on. The P's will be down a little bit lower in the pod, but that's fine. And then just do it again. So like I said, I would definitely recommend waiting until the black dries, but I like to live dangerously. So it's usually a bigger kind of dot and just a little tiny dot right above it. So there is my peas in the pod homemade squishy. I hope that you enjoyed this and that gives you an idea on how to create it yourself. It is definitely something that you have to kind of work on yourself and, you know, practice a few times cutting things and getting used to doing the cutting and the trimming and kind of thinking of the shapes in 3D in your head. Hopefully showing you how I did it will help you create your own. And these are totally adorable and awesome, and I think everybody should have one. But thank you guys very much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. If you want to see more squishy tutorials, you can share that with me in the comments below. And then if you make some of these, share them with me on my Instagram, which is at Crafting Fantastic, or on my Facebook page, which is feelinspiffy or Crafting Fantastic. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know when I come out with new things, because you really never know what it's going to be, so you want to be able to see when it's coming. So thanks so much, and I'll have more for you soon.